All right, good evening, folks. I would like to call the regular meeting of Kimberley City Council for Monday, November the 28th to order here on the homelands of the Ktunaxa peoples. Do we have any additional items this evening, Maurice?
There's one late item, a letter from Lynn Ferguson in relation to the development variance permit DVP 2022-12, which will be considered at item 2.1.
2.1?
Yeah.
All right, we'll receive it at 2.1. Thank you for that. So with that small adjustment, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Royer, thank you very much. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November the 14th. Please, Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor McGuire, seconds. Thanks, Woody. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And finally, the minutes of the special meeting of council held on November 21st. Mover to adopt, please. Councillor Royer, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Roberts. Thank you very much. Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we have a couple of delegations this evening. And first up, we have Linda Douglas, who is the president of the Arts Council. Welcome, Linda.
Oh. Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Unfortunately, two other members of our board was supposed to be with me tonight, but they are surprisingly unwell. It is, yeah. So I thank you, Mayor McCormick, and the councillors for the opportunity to meet with you this evening and to briefly introduce you to our strategic plan for 2022 to 2024. My plan is to be relatively brief, and I hope that you've had an opportunity to look at our plan. The Kimberley Arts Council is very proud of the long-standing partnership and collaboration with the City of Kimberley, and some of the goals we've identified in our present plan build on that partnership. Tonight, what I'd like to do is speak to two specific projects that have been included in our plan. The first involves the development of the parking lot space adjacent to Centre 64. For many years, there has been a memorandum of understanding between the city and the Arts Council. The city had agreed to reserve the land adjacent to the centre to support a future expansion project for the Arts Centre. Some of the ideas considered by past board members included building a larger and ground level theater or creating a maker's studio space. The present board has decided to move ahead with the building of a permanent outdoor stage and to create a public park-like space. Last spring, we met with Scott Somerville and Pam Walsh to discuss our ideas as part of their Engage Kimberley process. We're really pleased to state that the outdoor stage will be funded as part of the city's resort development strategy. And I'm also pleased to state that the Columbia Basin Trust has agreed to fund 80% of the costs to develop the conceptual design and cost estimate. So we have recently, after we secured a couple of quotes from two architectural firms, and we have hired Cover Architectural Collaborative, which is a firm from Nelson. And this is a firm that apparently had been involved with installing the elevator in the Arts Centre. So they know us. Our hope is to have the conceptual design completed by March. And we also plan to have a community process or involve the community into input of the design once we receive it. The other idea that I would like council to consider and to support is a new cultural plan for the City of Kimberley. The last one was completed in 2009. And obviously our city has changed and grown in many ways since then. And we believe that a new plan is important. The arts and culture of Kimberley plays a large role in making Kimberley a really good place to be. So basically that's all I really wanted to present tonight. If you have any questions or comments about our plan, I'd be happy to answer them.
Right. Thank you, Linda.
Mhm.
Council, questions or comments? Councillor McBain, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for providing this to us and just continue to foster and develop the arts culture in town. Something that I think we've been sorely lacking for, a very long time. I mean, we've been a blue collar town for recent memory at least, and it's really exciting to see all the work that's being put forth with all the events, that kind of center around Center 64. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that, and thank you for laying this out.
You're welcome.
Councillor Roberts.
Well, we now have a pottery studio that is extremely busy and in the center. So we received a grant and to renovate the space down there. So we have the Weavers Guild on one side and the pottery studio on the other. The issue with the maker space, I mean, there were a couple of ideas. Again, I was not on council or part of the board when those initial decisions were made. But ultimately, it came down to money. And I mean, to build a building there, yeah, lots of fundraising and lots of money. And then the issue of how do we continue to, where do we get the operational funding to run another building? So that's in a nutshell what it came down to. I mean, it's difficult to find the funds to do what, to fund the operations of what we have now. And we're all, we're a busy place and lots of ideas coming from people in the community that want to see more. And we would love to be able to do more. But again, there's only so much, resources available to us.
Go ahead.
41 or 42 years ago when we did the original design, that spot was given extra windows and it was intended originally for a makerspace, but somehow it never materialized.
Oh, okay.
And the other side of that was that we found that many artists, and as many artists as there are in the community, very few of them were full-time. And nor they having their own makerspace where they had to pay rent
Mhm.
was just not likely to be happening.
Mhm.
And you'd probably find that even if you moved into a building, that there's nobody can afford to pay the rent on a regular basis. So you'd be kind of funding the cultural center from this art center, which, like you say, is not that easy to do.
I mean, we do, one of the key income producers for the Arts Center is renting space. And certainly there are some artisans that do pay rent.
Mhm.
But you can imagine the rent that we charge is nothing than what they might have to
Much
pay in
upgrade.
another,
Yeah.
building in the community. So,
I'm just really glad to see
Mhm.
that space being utilized. It's been underutilized.
yes. And we're really happy now to have our theater back. And thank you for the roof. It presented some challenges to us this year for sure. And coming out of COVID but full speed ahead now. So thank
Yeah,
you.
no kidding.
No kidding.
It's funny, as difficult as it is when you go through it, once you're out the other side, it never seems, quite as difficult as it really was. So it's good to hear that we're on the other side of that for both the Arts Council and for the city.
Yes, exactly.
Stephen, go ahead.
You have my support, Linda. Thank you. You're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Further questions or comments, Council? Could I get you just to make, kind of expand on your cultural plan?
Well, actually, it's funny. I was trying to track down the cultural plan from 2009. Haven't been able to find it yet. And we can't find it. Doesn't seem to be around anywhere here in the art or in the city.
So is that a city document? that you're
Well, I
referring
think
to?
I think it was a joint initiative. So I guess that's what we're hoping is that we can look at doing that again and working together and bringing in the other key stakeholders in the community
Awesome.
to create that.
Yep.
Mhm.
Makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing no further questions. Thank you, Linda.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate you being here this evening.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Athena, you are next.
Good evening, everyone. First time doing this, so I will.
Take your time.
best.
Nobody bites.
Okay, so my name's Athena Nibs. I'm on the board for Kimberley Trail Society and a mom of 2 boys that have grown up at the Kimberley Bike Park. And I am here to present the Kimberley Bike Park Revitalization Project in conjunction with Kimberley Trail Society. Yeah, I think that would be best. Yeah. I do have it on my phone. I can. Okay. Sure. Okay. Okay, I'll just one. Okay, so basically we're a newly formed committee called the Kimberley Bike Park Committee under the KTS umbrella. And our goal is to develop a plan to create a safe, progressive bike park and paved pump track for all abilities. And we'd also like to create a long-term plan with the City of Kimberley to establish the bike park as a valuable outdoor recreation facility. And I'll just give you a quick history. So the bike park is located in behind the skate park. As you can see on this picture, it was built approximately 15 years ago. I can't exactly find the exact date. When I asked around, it was an informal collaboration between the City of Kimberley and a group of small users at the time. There was no formal partnerships or an actual formal committee to maintain the bike park. And so over the years, volunteers kind of took up the torch to look after the bike park. But sadly, over the years, the bike park has deteriorated quite a bit because of the lack of formal organization. And so I joined KTS about a year ago. And this basically, you can ask Nicole, has been one of my missions to bring more awareness to the plight of the bike park in the current state. I feel like by bringing the committee under the KTS umbrella, we have a formal organization by which to fundraise, and KTS already has a really positive relationship with the city. The current concerns basically are due to lack of resources and organization, and an overall deterioration has left the park with major safety concerns, liabilities, and accessibility issues. And I think it'll be best to go over the pictures and the slides for context. So basically, the bike park is actually located behind this mound, right behind the skate park. So the big mound reduces visibility in the event of an injury. And this has happened actually last year. A young man was biking down there, and actually a child was biking down there and was seriously injured and wasn't attended to right away because of the lack of visibility in the area. As well, signage for proper use and liability are not visible to those entering the park from the lower pathway along Mark Creek. So essentially, visibility and signage are a huge issue. Next slide. It might be kind of hard to see, but on the left picture is an actual picture of the dirt jumps. And so on the very right is a small run, and then there's in the middle is a big gap jump, and then on the left is a more of an intermediate run. So the lines are unsafe and they cross over each other. There's lack of progression. And there's no clearly defined staging area for kids and adults to actually know where to start their lines safely. That large in-run ramp promotes too much speed, and so therefore people come in those lines quite fast, and there's lots of risk of the lines crossing and having collisions. There's also poor drainage, and this causes a lot of debris from runoff to accumulate in the path of cyclists. Poor soil, lack of water and resources to refresh the features with new soil or replace structures. This is just an ongoing problem that was inherent. The volunteers that managed the park didn't have any access to funding. And I think over time, even with changes in civic processes, they lost that relationship with the city. And I think this, you know, no fault of anyone's. I think it was just the park had been there for a long time and it was being used by a certain demographic of people, but we're finding with increased use in the last few years, especially during the pandemic, there are lots of people frequenting the park, and it's actually not meeting safety standard or meeting insurance requirements. So there are several danger trees that are more of immediate concern. And they're in places where families and kids are playing. As you can see, that little guy doing the jumps there. There's lots of danger trees in the area. Basically, the whole area has significant concerns that impact insurances, which the city holds. So why build a new bike park and paved pump track? So first of all, the current park doesn't have it doesn't fulfill the need of accessibility, and that means suiting a wide range of abilities. A paved pump track actually supports all wheels, such as skateboards, longboards, scooters, BMX bikes, dirt jump bikes, and even wheelchairs. So also, bike parks are free, low barrier entry outdoor facilities. They don't cost any money. They're very low cost to maintain compared to indoor facilities. And they target that vulnerable demographic of young families and youth that are usually statistically lower on the income scale. Bike parks, the trend of mountain biking in general and bike parks is a growing industry. I think we can all kind of recognize that in our little town of Kimberley. We have 2 really busy bike shops. Their trails are significantly busier this past year than they ever have been. And there's a huge shift in recreation facilities. People don't want to recreate inside. They don't necessarily want to pay for organized sports. They want to have a lot of experiences outside in nature and in one place where they can enjoy a variety of features. And so a bike park actually supports this concept really well. Second last, a bike park aligns with the expansion of our current trail network. Everybody is probably quite familiar with Electrify the Mountain, and KTS and the city are working together to bring that to fruition. And initial feedback from people that have been using some of the trails that are complete, the response is overwhelming. And so a lot of these new trails, these purpose-built bike trails, have jump lines, they have rollers, they have berms, and bike parks support learning of these skills quite nicely. And so it only makes sense when we are increasing our trail network to match that level of purpose-built trails with a facility such as this. Lastly, I have a few statistics about cycle tourism. Excuse me. A very local statistic. So Lifetime Outdoor built a really short little jump line behind College, the Rockies. And they put a trail counter on the trail, and that trail has been used since March 22,000 times. So people, and that jump line has jumps, rollers, berms. And these are the kind of trails people want. And so bike parks really fit in nicely to that modern trail that people are looking for. So the city of Squamish is a city about 20,000. So it's a fairly small city, but it's considered one of the best biking destinations in BC. In 2006, they reported $2.6 million in cycle tourism dollars. And in 2016, they reported 9.9 million. So the impact of cycle tourism on our economy is quite great. I know for myself, when I travel with my family, we always have our bikes in tow and we look for facilities such as bike parks and pump tracks. We go to Fernie on a regular basis. We go to Nelson, we go to Trail, we go to Castlegar, Roslyn. So I've seen a lot of bike parks and I've researched a lot of bike parks. Next slide. So what we've done so far, we've actually done quite a bit as a new committee. We created our committee to promote longevity and make sure that there is always someone caring for the bike park. I connected with Nicole early on last late winter and started to build that partnership with the city because it really takes the people within the city to be a driving force with a project like this. We conducted a bike park survey in April. I won't go over it in too much detail due to time constraints, but I hope everybody had a look. There's some really enlightening comments, reflections. We created a wish list from this, and we incorporated some of those things into our concept plan. We applied to the CBT Outdoor Active Recreation Grant, and that's the main reason I'm here. So we applied for the amount of $250,000, and Elkford has received that grant last year for their bike park and paved pump track. And they began construction on the dirt jump portion last year, and next year they'll be starting on the paved pump track portion. We drafted a concept plan with the help of a landscape architect. We had someone that moved to town that had lots of experience with building and designing paved pump tracks and bike parks from Australia, New Zealand. And so we have a really nice concept plan in the initial stages. And we organized a movie night fundraiser for December 9th. We sold out in 3 days. And we're actually holding a second movie night in the spring and a fat bike raffle as well. So we have lots going on and we're really trying to move forward and just generate a lot of interest. The concept will be applied in 3 stages. And this is the the first draft of our concept plan. It's actually gone to second draft. We actually have a working committee with bike park designers, riders, families, all local people, lots of good ideas and resources available. So the first phase, I'm going to actually move along and I'll be able to describe it a little better. So starting in spring and summer, we would start with the first phase of rebuilding the dirt jumps to suit different skill levels so it's more accessible to all. In 2024, we would plan to create an all-wheels facility, and that's the paved pump track. And it would be fully integrated into the existing area by the skate park, which would get some of the congestion off of the skate park. Some of those scooters and skateboards and BMXers can actually go on the paved pump track. And then in 2025, we would develop the green space around the bike park to blend it into the surrounding natural landscape and better integrate it into the Lions Trail. And these are some quick examples. These are paved pump tracks. The one in the the lower right side is actually Pemberton. The village of Pemberton is 2,500 people. They just opened this facility this past summer. And the top picture is the mayor riding his bicycle with a little girl on a run bike. These are examples of dirt jumps, and they are well formed, and they've got wood and metal lips to help prevent erosion. The signage indicates the level of skill, and there's a little map that outlines where the green, blue, and black runs are. And that was something that was identified in the survey, is that a lot of people thought the park was poorly organized and not safe. You couldn't figure out what line was which. Okay, so the total cost, this is the fun part and scary part all at once. Total cost, for the purposes of our grant application, this is what we came up with for our budget, just over 414. It encompasses the total cost of doing this project over 3 years and trying to incorporate features like wood features and paved features that will last a long time so they don't deteriorate. The project creates local jobs for park designers, park construction companies, trail crews, and secondary contractors. Phase 1 would cost roughly about 115, phase 2, 180, because that's the paved pump track portion. Phase 3 is 123, and that's for improving the green spaces and integrating it better into the Lions Trail. Okay, so what we're asking for is and it seems like a big ask, but I think it's essential for an outdoor facility that could be a very great complement to our current trail system and provide a really great place to draw in not only our local people, but people from away. We would like to create an official and sustainable partnership agreement with the city. And if you have questions about that, I have lots of information on other communities and how they've worked it. We'd like support with funding, and also as a backup plan, the third point, approval to apply for the Destination Development Fund if we can't make the CBT fund, the CBT grant work. And so basically, I just want to let you know, I received a phone call from a CBT contact, Will Nixon. He is aware that I have this council meeting tonight, and he's waiting approval from council to proceed with our application. He said if the funds are approved from council and we get that support from council, the whole project will move, the funding will move in a very positive direction. He is also indicated that he's very flexible to try and work some numbers and help us out in some way. So the CBT grant of 250,000, 60%, that's 60% of the total cost of 414. So we are asking for over 3 years, 100,000. So approximately 33,000, little over. We are actively doing some fundraising and a raffle throughout December. And we have some fundraising that we're organizing for the spring as well. And then KTS has indicated that they would give just over 19,000 over 3 years by way of sponsorship and fundraising. And then also support with ongoing maintenance, which actually 6,000 is actually a pretty generous estimate. And I've done lots of research with other bike parks and in the East and West Kootenays to get a good handle on that number. And that can be discussed during if you have questions about the partnership agreement. The other thing to mention is that the city of Pemberton, the village of Pemberton, which is 2,500, last year secured a civic infrastructure grant of just under $1 million for their bike park and paved pump track. And that's it. Did I make it under the time limit?
Not quite, but
No.
that's all right. We have, I'm sure, additional questions. Councillor McBain, go ahead.
Well, first off, you did a really good job. So
Thank you.
thank you. Little bit concerned about the cost estimates. Given that you mentioned that there's, I think you mentioned poor soils in the area. Kimberly's basically all founded here on glacial tills and stream bed material right near Mark Creek. So that's going to be a lot of fill, a ton of fill. If you're
And so the plan is, our thoughts are, and it's, a lot of dirt jumps, you have to bring good fill in.
Yep.
It needs to be a particular mixture.
Yep.
And we're going to offset some of that need for fill with the wooden features.
Okay.
Which help also prevent the deterioration. And so the other hope is that when we level the mound, when we level that mound, we'll have some fill from that to create a base, and then we just have to add to it for
Okay.
fluff.
And
basically.
just further to that, so where did the cost estimates come from? Were these design cost estimates, or were they construction cost estimates?
So they were a mixture. And so for the grant application, we had to go over, we got quotes for design and construction of the dirt jumps, which was roughly about 45,000. And then for the wood jumps, the wood and metal lips that go in front of the jumps, those are about 45,000 as well. And then things like mulch, wood for fencing, signage, all those things. We had to list fairly extensively all of our costs, including design, engineering, construction, and then we put a 20% contingency fund in there just to be safe.
And asphalt was included in that too?
Yes, that's in the 180,000, and that's based on the approximate size of the paved pump track that Elkford is putting in. That is a Velo Solutions pump track that they are putting in, and it is basically industry standard. I wasn't able to connect with the person that actually had the actual design to get, but I sort of based it on the cost that they're spending versus the size.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I mean, you've given me all, I think, I just,
Okay.
those numbers to me look low on first inspection, but yeah, I'd be curious to hear more.
Yeah, and I think some of the things that we factored in were some of the in-kind donations and the extensive resources that KTS usually has with equipment rentals and, fencing products and, things like that.
Thank you, Councillor McBain. Further? All right, so you won't be getting a commitment this evening. Not that I think you were expecting one.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, we don't have a budget item kind of sitting there with, discretionary cash in it, but we are starting our formal budgeting process here. In fact, we're into it a little bit now. So thank you for the presentation, and we will have further discussion on this for sure.
Sure. So what would you advise? What can I let the CBT contact know that we just need further?
Yeah, kind of stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just explain to him that this was first presentation to council. He knows how it works.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thanks, Athena. I really appreciate the presentation.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for having me. And
All right, that's it for delegations this evening. And thank you, Linda. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. So first up, we have the OCP amendment for bylaw 2723, which is covering 520 Wallinger Avenue. And the motion on the floor is that council approves second reading of this bylaw. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire and Councillor Royer seconds. Discussion. Do we have any discussion on this this evening, Scott?
It would basically be the same as what was brought forth for the first reading.
Right.
I don't think anything.
Nothing has
is-
changed
no.
through the second reading. All right. So let's do. Are there any comments, Council, on this one? So we'll call the question on this first part, this first motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that motion is carried. Second is that council, that an electronic public hearing on this bylaw be scheduled in conjunction with the regular meeting of January the 9th. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And the second bylaw pertaining to this is that council approves second reading of bylaw 2724, and further that an electronic public hearing on that particular piece also be heard on January 9th. Councillor Royer moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? The motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the City of Kimberley Sewer Rates and Regulations Bylaw. And this is for consideration of the first three readings. And the motion is that council give first, second, and third readings to bylaw 2729, which is the sewer rates and regulations bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire.
I just had a question. Did we do the fourth motion there in the last one?
Um,
The public hearing, the second one?
yeah, I'm combining the last
Okay,
two.
perfect.
Yeah. That's all right. Mover, Councillor McGuire, thank you. Seconded, Councillor McBain. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. I could have combined the first one too, but it didn't say and further, so it threw me off a little bit, Maurice. Okay, next up is the Kimberley Waterworks Rates and Regulations Bylaw. And similar to the previous, it's that council give first, second, and third readings to this particular bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns and Councillor McGuire seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have a development variance permit for, actually, there's two of them in a row here. We'll deal with them separately. The first one is 18A, 2640 Warren Avenue, which is the mobile home park just off Warren Avenue down by the Western Lodge. The motion on the floor is that council approve the development variance permit to vary sections of the bylaw to facilitate siting a mobile home on 18A. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Royer. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And similar motion for 31A, that council approve the development variance permit for the siting of the mobile home. Mover, please. Councillor Royer moves and Councillor Cairns seconds. Paying attention, guys. Help me out here. Any further discussion? All those in, oh, go ahead, Woody.
Wasn't there something to 2.1 that we were supposed to bring into this meeting, or is that? I thought there was an addition.
Oh, the letter. Yeah.
Was
thank
that
you.
provided in the background materials, or?
It was a late item that had come in.
Okay.
So it should be on your agenda.
Okay.
It
it's
would
in
have been
there, okay.
updated
Okay,
agenda.
perfect.
Yeah,
Mr.
Okay, then I
Mayor,
did see that. Sorry.
go ahead.
it's not clear in the letter because it's been redacted, which one of these two items, whether it's 18 or 31, that is applicable to the letter.
The
Was it-
letter is in relation
was it
to
Number
item
18?
2.1.
Hang on, Maurice.
The letter is in relation to item 2.1.
Yes,
So
which is 18A.
18.
2.1 is 18A. Yeah. Thanks, thanks, Maurice. You okay with that?
Yeah.
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 Go ahead.
I thought.
I think we could just comment on that just a little bit since we've been talking about it. I think there was some concerns there from one of the other homeowners, but I mean, my biggest concern was the fire department requirements, and it seems like we've worked through that. I mean, I understand neighbors' concerns and with privacy and stuff. But I think my biggest concern, at least, was the
Safety.
fire, the safety aspect of it. And if the fire department has okayed it, then
Yep.
I think we can move on.
Right.
So
Thanks for those comments, Councillor McBain. Anything further? Call the question then. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, under new business, we have the banking resolution for signing officers. And just before we read the motions off, can you, Maurice, just explain the, it's the resolution from 2018 that is being rescinded, not one that we had dealt with in favor of a new one. So 2018 to 2022 was that, and we are now creating a new signing officer for the next 4-year term.
Yes, exactly.
So that would be the summary. So the motion on the floor is that for the 4-year term starting in 2022, signing officers authorized to execute banking transactions would include myself, Councillor Roberts, or Councillor Cairns, together with Scott Somerville, our CAO, Jim Hendricks, our Chief Financial Officer, or Krista Wade, who is the Deputy CFO. And further, that banking resolution covering 2018 to 2022 be rescinded. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McGuire. Any further comment, Maurice? Or have I completely confused everybody?
I would defer to the Chief Financial Officer on this one.
Oh, I think
Go ahead, Jim.
that about covers it, Mr. Mayor. So if council moves this resolution, we'll make arrangements with the local branch of the RBC for you to come in and sign the new cards sometime probably in the next week here.
Right. Okay. Everybody on that list cool with that? Okay. Awesome. You're not on the list. Good. Thank you. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, next up under new business number 2 is the rejuvenation of Cominco Gardens. There is an expression of interest for a grant application to the Destination Development Fund. And the motion on the floor is that council authorize the submission of an expression of interest for the rejuvenation of Cominco Gardens with the Destination Development Fund. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. All right, discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Cairns and then Councillor Roberts.
It's great to see the attention to the revitalization and renewal of the gardens as a community and tourism asset. And the community and many stakeholders, of course, are keenly interested in the garden. The location and assets suit a design and a vision that integrates many uses there. So tourism, heritage, horticulture, outdoor events, health, food. Ideally, a design that supports on-site revenue generating events. And if we do this right, the gardens can serve our community and tourism more effectively while retaining the heritage and memorial aspects. What I'm suggesting is an updated vision to 2022 that would ideally guide any capital work going forward. You see the timelines on the grant, of course, and if work were to start before an updated vision and plan were in place, I would suggest the focus should be on projects that don't preclude future options.
Okay, thanks for that comment, Councillor Cairns. Further, Council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Sandra.
I'm a bit more pragmatic and not quite as steeped in the past as many others are. And I'm very aware of it. I've always lived for the future. My husband will tell you he's always lived in the past, and ne'er the twain shall meet. And what I find interesting is we keep not really coming to the crux of this matter. And the crux of the matter is that we have in the possession of the city of Kimberley a hospital building, one floor of which is presently not occupied, but needs to be if we're going to keep that building. So if we actively go about the business of making that building accessible to the stage where we can actually rent it and fulfill it, where would those people park? How would they can't park over the back? They can't park in behind. They're certainly not going to park at the Pines. So the looking future in terms of sustainability, does that include a beautiful garden? And I don't know that we've really actually had this conversation and held up our flag and say, plunked it in the ground and said, this is the way we're going to do it going forward. It's always one of those questions, that or what if we do it? What if we fix, what if we come up with money to strip the upstairs floor and set up a whole bunch of offices that are appropriate for interior health or anybody? So I just am acting as the devil's advocate in this decision. I think it would be lovely to have a memorial garden there. But what if the Society for the Hospital finds a worthy renter that can help that building pay for itself? That we have rescued and we keep as a clinic and we keep as a place for so many of the medical attributes that we have in our community, like the loan cupboard and the diabetes nurses, and all of that is there in that building, and it's precious to us. So I just feel as though I'm really kind of on the fence about the whole thing, because as much as I would like to see the garden beautified, we have to sort of think about how much money are we going to put in that if we are at the next stage going to find ourselves having to dig it up. Just food.
Thanks for
food
that,
thought.
Councillor Roberts. I think in a slightly different way, both you and Councillor Cairns is saying the same thing. You know, this isn't, this is a destination development fund. It's for development of additional tourism, not to just repair infrastructure that is, you know, within the city of Kimberley. Garden-based tourism, I mean, just take a look at, I mean, this is in a bit of a different league, but the Bouchard Gardens and similar types of amenities are in communities all across Canada. And it is a thing, and it does provide an opportunity to bring lots of additional tourism to the community. I don't think the vision is a memorial garden, because that's not a tourism destination thing, but we need to respect the fact that there is a memorial garden aspect to Cominco Gardens and to the community that we need to figure out some kind of a balance, you know, between the two. And, you know, I think as we're moving forward with this, those considerations, you know, are all part of the conversation. Councilor McBain.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that sentiment. I think we can do both. I think there's, as Councillor Roberts mentioned, yeah, the health center is working towards trying to occupy that building, and there's going to be parking needs there. But also too, if Cominco Gardens were to be resurrected, so to speak, it's going to need parking as well if we're trying to make it a destination. So I think just in general, parking is going to have to be a consideration as part of this. So I think as this can move forward, it just needs to be taken into consideration that type of infrastructure is going to have to be included.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any additional comments? Scott, did you want to make any comment?
I would. It's just quite rare to see a grant that rejuvenates old assets rather than adding new assets, which future generations will have to maintain. So refreshing to see this. I think it's a project that the community would be really excited about, and it would be great to restore it to its former glory. The deer fencing in particular, it's just getting ravaged by deer now, and it looks awful protecting it from the deer. So something more permanent in that regards will make a huge improvement.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Stephen.
As a landscaper, as my profession, I just love this idea. I think it's going to make a big difference to our community. And let's be honest, I mean, beautiful garden makes people smile.
Well, and you can't, I mean, to be a destination for tourism, you need more than just a singular reason to bring people to town. And this is a whole lot different than skiing and golfing and mountain biking. Councillor Dunneback, go right ahead.
If I may add, I went to a concert there this summer that was put on by the Kaleidoscope, I believe. And it was absolutely amazing. Young, old, everybody was there. Everybody was having a good time. And I think that there is a facility there with washrooms and all that stuff that's already there, that there is a capability of raising money there with concerts and maybe summer projects for kids, daycare, stuff like that, that there's lots of opportunity there. And we need to also, I feel, embrace a little bit of the history of the Cominco Gardens and Kimberly, and how much everybody has appreciated that at some point in time in their life.
Thanks for that, Councillor Donneback. Okay, seeing no further hands waving in the air, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the grant application, that motion is carried. Let's not forget that it's an application. This doesn't mean that we're suddenly going to have the money and away we go. I think history tells us that, you have to do an awesome job of putting the application in, but awesome applications don't always mean the money's going to come. So we need to be realistic about that as well. Okay. Pardon me. Next up, we have a notice of motion from Councillor Cairns regarding the limitation of strata conversions of existing rental apartment buildings. Did you want to kind of read out your motion, Sue?
Sure. So the title is Limiting Strata Conversions of Existing Rental Apartment Buildings, whereas Kimberley's supply of rental housing is currently too low to meet demand, as identified in the City of Kimberley's Housing Needs Assessment Report, June of 2021. And whereas the conversion of existing rental apartments to strata title could reduce the existing stock of rental units within the City of Kimberley, therefore be it resolved that staff develop strata conversion guidelines that do not allow strata conversions of existing rental apartment buildings when City of Kimberley rental vacancy rates are below 5%. So could I take a minute to?
Yeah, well, let's get it on the floor first. A mover, are you moving your own motion?
I'll move my
That
motion.
sounds like a plan. And Councillor Royer seconds. Go ahead.
Sure. So thank you. And as we know, our lack of rental housing is impeding our economy and services where businesses can't hire. Landlords are noting a huge demand, and Chamber of Commerce has noted it as lack of housing as a very high priority. It's limiting workers for construction, health, and other services. Any loss of supply through conversion of existing rental apartments to strata title under our very low vacancy rates has the effect of forcing residents out of their homes at a time when there's nowhere to go. In all likelihood, it could lead to homelessness. Many BC municipalities have set policies to secure purpose-built rental buildings from conversion to strata title when vacancy rates are very low. The responsibility lies with the city, and since it's not addressed in Kimberley's city policy, there's a lack of clarity and certainty. Linking to vacancy rate has the effect of improving certainty for property owners, prospective buyers, tenants, and the city as a whole. The guidelines strata title conversion from the City of Cranbrook essentially draw down from the Strata Property Act, and they go the extra distance to tie to vacancy rate. Kimberley's 2021 housing report identifies the lack of supply of long-term rental housing, and it's going to take many years to address the gap. It's critical not to lose supply in the meantime. Bridging this gap to more rental housing in our community and creating more certainty for developers, tenants, and buyers in the city as a whole is the purpose of this resolution policy request.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not sure. I mean, I just don't know if this has been a problem for us in the past. I mean, you definitely are correct in the fact that we have our supply is way too low. Like everybody knows that. I mean, that's spot on. I just don't know if this is something that we've even had to deal with, or if there's the threat of it happening. So I just don't know. And I'd be curious to hear any more insight.
Go ahead.
So this is broader than this specific set of circumstances. There is a situation with Kimbrook Apartments where there is some potential But this is about having a strengthened housing policy overall. So that is one area where there are 55 units of housing that are not available anywhere else in the Kimberley market like that. So it's one example.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So elaborating Jason's concern. So let's just say there's a 50-unit building that's owned by one owner. He can give those tenants 4 months notice and say, I'm going to stratify thing. Those 50 units would be out on the street. What Sue's trying to do is prevent that from happening. And that's why other communities have done, bigger and larger communities have done the same thing. But we're sort of like in the medium-sized community, and I think we can prevent this from happening. So that's one strategy that's coming forward. But just keep that in mind. 4-month notice if they want, if the owner wants to strata title his units.
So, so your statement's not exactly correct. The municipality has final authority and approval over any stratification that may happen. There's a process that they have to go through, but at the end of the day, it's up to us as to whether we approve that or not. And it's a long, drawn-out process to get there. And given that we have control over that, I'm not sure that what is being proposed here isn't a solution that's looking for a problem. I mean, Kimberley, we have a really, really small number of apartments here. In fact, I'm not sure we had an apartment style building, whether it be rent or for sale, built in the last 30 years. And I think we need to be very cautious about what other larger communities are doing that have large volumes of these types of buildings where there's a much higher probability of something like this happening. You know, I guess the other, given that we control it anyway, staff capacity right now is a huge issue. And I'm really concerned that this is going to be diversionary and is going to take staff work away from other work that is, quite honestly, a much higher priority at this point. Again, given that we totally control whether an apartment block is stratified or not. And I don't think there's any indication, you know, that we're in danger of having an application go in at this point in time. So, you know, bringing in a policy in a vacuum, basically, to what the requirement is, I think we need to be very cautious of doing that. There are all kinds of unintended consequences as a result of doing something that you're not trying to solve a problem for, or that you don't need to. And I think this is one of those circumstances. Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I guess that was my concern, is that I was under the understanding that we had control over when somebody proposes to stratify. So I kind of agree. I think we've addressed that that staff is a little bit stretched. So I've hesitated to try to move new things on our staff. I really appreciate this trying to be proactive, but I tend to agree. I think given the nature of our town and the likelihood that a stratification application may come to us, we could take it on a case-by-case basis and probably sort it out. So
Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, in fairness to the new councillors, they may not be aware of the number of potential new rental spaces that are forthcoming, that have been in discussion and in planning and trying to get their feet started over the last, say, 8 months, and that our rental stuff, we are totally aware of the fact that there's no rental, and staff and the mayor and anybody who asks has been working really, really hard to get things happening here. And a lot of that's coming to the forefront pretty quickly here. But in the middle of the election, a lot of it is just kind of waiting for us. So I'm comfortable that we're going to be able to decrease or increase our rental ability, decrease the outage in the short term, pretty soon.
Thanks for the comments, Councillor Roberts. I think it's important for us too to take a look at of the things that we control in trying to facilitate housing of all types being built in town. You know, we just completed a review of the building bylaw and came up with the, it's a long name on that bylaw, housing and availability and affordability, where we have taken some really aggressive steps to allow for more densification, which is going to reduce the variance requests that are coming and be facilitating and getting more affordable housing into the community. The three projects, or the four projects that Councillor Roberts was alluding to, three of them are CMHC financed, which means not only is the financing guaranteed by CMHC, but a certain percentage of all of those doors are going to be under market. I can't remember the percentage, something like 30% under market, which, you know, in today's environment is, you know, the definition of affordable. We also provide even more flexibility for not-for-profits that are looking at building social housing. You know, we not only flexibility in the bylaws, but we provide permissive tax exemptions, support for referrals to funding agencies, and a whole host of things to help create an environment that encourages either developers or the not-for-profits to be able to build housing in the community. And right now in the queue, within the next probably 12 to 32 months, because not everything is at the same stage. We have upwards of 200 to 250 rental doors that that we're looking at bringing into inventory here over the next couple of years. So we're actually in pretty good shape when it comes to solving our own problem with respect to rental housing. In any event, I'm straying off the topic here a little bit. My apologies for that. I think it's, I guess what I'm trying to express is that, you know, this whole housing thing is a very complicated issue, and we need to look at it holistically within the things that we control as a municipality that encourages those that build to build. And when we have control over our own destiny, not making decisions ahead of ourselves leaves us flexibility to be able to move as circumstances dictate. So, you know, for those reasons, I won't be supporting the this particular bylaw. Further comments? Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I appreciate the sentiment of this motion. I think that it's important to look at housing at a local level here, and that I mean, recently I think it's definitely relevant with the recent announcement from the provincial government that's saying that they're planning on lifting strata rental restrictions, and other restrictions as well around age groups that are. I don't know if we have any strata in our city that are applicable to this, but they're planning on lifting those restrictions so that that they can become part of the rental stream and also be opened up to different age groups. I do have concern around the 5%, just because I don't know whether we actually track what our vacancy rate is on rentals. Maybe that's a question that Sue could answer. And then I was also curious whether Scott might be able to speak to the city's planners, if they'd have had any comment on this yet.
That's Scott.
To answer the first question, we don't track rental rates in Kimberley. We're just a little too small to be on the radar. Councillor Cairns and I came up with some alternatives, putting the onus on the developer to prove the current rental rates, and professionals can be hired to do that. Yeah, right away we talked to the planning department about this, who informed me that stratification is their responsibility. I asked if there was anything they were aware of as far as stratification proposed. They weren't aware of any, and they said, in fact, they'd seen the opposite happen, where stratas had applied to become rentals in the past. But we had a look at what Cranbrook's doing. They've got a great guidance document on stratification. I don't think it would be a ton of work for the planning staff to you know, sincerely imitate that document. And yeah, they are very busy right now, but we, you know, Troy's not here to speak to it, but I think he could turn a document like that around sometime in December or January.
Scott. Pardon me. Thank you, Scott. Okay, anything further? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. Go ahead, final word.
Okay, I just want to comment that as far as the proposed, the work that's underway on creating greater supply of rental housing, phenomenal. It'll take years. And that not having stronger policy does leave things to chance and open to advocacy, where we hear from developers, but not necessarily those who could be out of house and homes. So just different capacity there around advocacy abilities. And then also it does send a signal, I think, to developers when you're sitting in a situation where you don't actually have stronger policy out in front. So, and then just to comment around the staff time piece too, is that it could be quite simply just drawn down from the Strata Property Act to tie that to vacancy rate. It would be quite a simple process to do. So I'll leave it at that. Thank
All right.
you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Councillor Cairns. Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Dunnebeck, did you have your hand up one way or the other? I'm sorry? Okay, yep, thank you. So the motion is passed. Thanks, Council, for the conversation. Okay, next up we have, actually last up under new business, we have the City of Kimberley check run in the amount of $828,035 to be approved as paid. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds. Any out of the ordinaries in this batch, Sandra?
Your microphone, Sandra.
What's that, Scott?
No one in TV land is going to catch that comment. Yep.
Sorry, I forgot my microphone. The only large item is a payment to McKay Contracting, the trucking that's been working throughout the summer. Probably getting near the end of all their money. We'll be paying them now.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Unless there's any further comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, we have a number of items under correspondence this evening. The first item is for action, so we'll just deal with it separately. And that is an email from Stephen Gray regarding a letter of support to CMHC for a development he is planning for Rotary Drive. Everybody reviewed the letter, right? Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds.
Mr. Mayor, what are you moving exactly?
We are moving a
Letters.
letter of support, approval for a letter of support,
Okay.
as outlined in the correspondence. Okay, good. Maurice,
Yep.
we're good. Okay, any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
I'm just sorry. I missed who moved and seconded.
Councillor McBain moved. Yeah, Councillor McGuire second.
Perfect. Thank you.
And could I have a mover to receive the balance of the correspondence, please? Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Royer seconds. Anything of note, Council? All those in favor? The motion is carried. All right. Councillor items. Actually, I guess we need to do the question period piece for both, I guess, those in council chamber. We have a couple of folks here tonight, plus anybody that may be watching on YouTube. And for anybody watching live on YouTube, you can call 800-741-7180. And when prompted, the meeting number is 2772-504-8443. Hope everybody had a pencil as I was quoting that. In any event, if you call, you'll be put in the queue and you'll be able to ask a question on anything that we discussed at the meeting here tonight. So while we're waiting to see if anybody chimes in, let me ask from our gallery here, do either of you have any questions or comments? No? Okay, cool. Let's move on then to councillor items and do the roundtable on anything that you have done for the betterment of our city. Councillor Royer.
I'm gonna take another hat from last time. So gonna start off with the Mark Creek Lions Club, and just letting you know what we've been doing. Every Saturday we have the meat draw, and we've been increasing exponentially the donations just around Christmas time, which is really great. And just to let you know that we are going to donate $1,000 to the food bank this week. So there's been a lot of stuff happening with the Mark Creek Lions Club, and we also have the 250 draw coming up this Saturday. You can win $1,000. So the tickets are selling fast and furious. I think there's only 10 left, which I have. So Mark Creek Lions Club is very, very passionate about helping those who can't help themselves, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, thanks, Stephen. Because your attendance and participation was not as a counselor, we're going to be charging the Mark Creek Lions Club some cash promotion. So don't spend it all. Thank you. Councillor Dunavac.
On Saturday, I met with, lost my train of thought here, with advocates for Kimberley. I was told it was going to be a busload of kids to talk about the Kimberley Underground Mining Railroad Society. It turned out it was a bunch of adults, so quickly crumpled up my notes and threw them over my shoulder and went off the cuff. But at the end of the day, it was a great experience to be able to share a bit of our history with the Sullivan Mine. It was very well taken by everybody. The fact that we have changed this town from 100 years of mining to pivoting towards tourism, skiing, golfing, mountain biking, skateboarding, trails, all that stuff. It was nice to see that they wanted to learn and want to not bury that and share it with the people that come to Kimberley. And it was really well taken. And actually, everybody that showed up, I want to say there's about 25 people, and the majority of them have actually taken the time to take the tour, and we're really excited to see where we're going with the grants that we're securing. We just finished the pump house, and now we're working on getting grants for the shop, getting that all cleaned up. It's really nice, the presentation, and everybody was really took it in, and it made me feel really good
Awesome.
to be a part of it. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Kevin. Jason.
All right. Yeah, I had a couple meetings in the interim. Well, I guess first thing, wanted to say that I attended the light up. I got there right as the lights were turning on. I blame the kids on us getting there late. But it was awesome. And what I noticed, and I think we've talked about it a little bit at council, the first thing that struck me is how many little ones are running around Kimberley right now. It just blows my mind. It's just an explosion of children. Yeah, lots of, I'll have to talk to Mr. Oakley. There's could be some work to come for the school board. No, I had a couple meetings in the interim, one with the library committee and one with the health center committee. Both of those committees actively seeking new directors. So I guess I'll just put it out there as a call for folks who are interested. I like I really enjoy my time with both committees. It's great people and doing great work. So I'll just leave it at that. And yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
Mhm.
Excellent. Woody?
Yeah, so last week I attended the BC elected officials webinar that I mentioned last meeting. It's a webinar put on by the CEA Climate Caucus and BC Municipal Climate Leadership Council. And it was fairly informative. Nice to see municipalities sharing resources on these issues. I've signed up for their emailing list, so I guess I'll be filtering through their information and let you know if there's anything that pertains to this community. Also wanted to announce that the Government of Canada has put in $530 million to FCM for their Green Municipal Fund, which is to support community-based climate adaptation initiatives. So that's an exciting piece of information, looking to see what happens with those funds moving forward. And then also the provincial government legislation that I mentioned earlier that lifts strata rental restrictions. It sounds like it'll also have the ability to set housing targets for municipalities from the provincial government, which could be interesting. I don't think it'll be I don't think it'll pertain to Kimberley in particular, but it could maybe lighten the load of housing across BC, which is a win for our community. And that's it.
Thanks for that, Woody. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, there are 6 or 7 municipalities that they're targeting that are having all kinds of issues. The bigger municipalities, basically. But I think it may create a good template for smaller communities like ours as well, because we're suffering from the same thing, just on a smaller scale. Okay, Sue.
Great, thank you. So a few AGMs, Friends of Lois Creek and Kimberley Nature Park, but I'm not. I went as Sue. So, and then
They're going to get fined.
and so I think pretty much everything I do right at this point, except for rounding up some people around the Mark Creek Watershed Committee, kind of starting to find out who's involved and put some information together there. So that's as Councillor Sue.
Awesome.
And attended a really interesting talk on asset management by David Allen. He's with the Asset Management of BC, AMBC. The goal is the delivery of cost-effective, sustainable services, and it's a community of practice for municipal governments. And I highly recommend the recording. It was about 35 minutes. It was excellent, and I'll circulate it by email in case folks are interested. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, thank you. Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 things. Thursday night, Bill and I attended the volunteer dinner that was put on by the Sullivan Mining Interpretive Center, and it was really nice to see all those volunteers come together, and they work so hard all year. They are they provide volunteer services for one of the largest tourist draws in the community. They broke all their records this year for attendance and the number of people that they put through, and it's just a really cool group of people that work together to make that happen. It's amazing how many of them just volunteer too, that don't expect to be paid for their volunteer time. The second thing, I'm just going to give you a little bit more depth information about my attendance at the annual general meeting of the Nature Park. And for those of you who might not understand what that means, it is the Kimberley Nature Park Society that operates for the benefit of the nature park on behalf of the city of Kimberley, who holds the license of occupation on that land. And so they come together with the purpose of creating a kind of a conservation, education, and recreational aspect to what the park is all about. Out of that has grown a whole bunch of stuff that we just have kind of been the underpinnings for the Trail Society, underpinnings for a lot of other things that take place in the park, including all these races and so on. Without the park, that wouldn't be happening. And without these people kind of keeping it alive and paying attention to it, it would just maybe fall by the wayside. they've done some amazing things. They have all kinds of work on the trails. They work together with Brian from the Trail Society, and they have also been working together with the people from the Electrify the Mountain. They've named a couple of new trails. One of the new trails is called Electric Avenue. Another one is called Hertz So Good, HERTZ. And so they've named a few more trails. They have had with the Flannel Fest, they've had a poker ride in there, the Round the Mountain Festival, Black Spur, and the Rocky Mountain Single Track. They've done all kinds of natural history stuff. The Shred Sisters are doing mountain bike clinics in there. They have run through the Orientation Club, or pardon me, Orienteering Club, and they take their group to the nature park every week. Teachers bring their students there to the park multiple times a week. They've got so many things that are actually going on in there. One of the grants that they received this year was for the Natural History Committee. They have applied for a grant for a wildlife camera project that has resulted in 4 cameras placed in different areas of the park to monitor the wildlife and try to get a better sense of what's moving in and through the park. So they got them in 4 different places, and they are pretty tickled with how it's all turning out. They'll start posting some of that stuff onto the website. Also at the AGM, there was a local gentleman by the name of Lyle Grisdale, who showed us a photography montage of birds. And he's a bird guy, I'll tell you. There's not a bird in the world he doesn't know about or participate in knowledge of. And he noted that in the nature park itself, we have recorded over 183 species of birds just in our nature park. So it was a really good evening all the way around. I just wanted to get
Awesome.
sense of what it was,
Yeah, thank
what
you.
they're
Sandra.
doing.
Yeah, it sounds
Yep.
like, sounds like a great event. Thank you. Do we have any callers?
There's no callers, Mr. Mayor.
No callers. All right, I'll just provide a brief summary of some of the stuff that I've been up to this last couple of weeks. I think as I had mentioned at the last meeting, Western Economic Diversification now have a BC entity. It's called Pacifican. The minister was in Kelowna to kick off kind of this organization in the province, and in particular, the number of satellite locations around the province, of which Cranbrook is one. And Corey Kanzik, who is our rep from Cranbrook, was here with his boss, who is one of the vice presidents of Pacifican from Vancouver. I met with them and talked a little bit about what was going on, kind of follow the dollars. They basically are a money-giving organization for economic development initiatives. And we talked about, several that, that we're working on in the background, and hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of them as we go forward. I also had a meeting with Purcell Collegiate, Duncan McLeod, to get an update on what was happening with the school moving forward. I don't know if was anybody here at the McKim School presentation that they had made, the update they made here just short, about 10 days ago? No. So work is underway right now for them to actually start the school next year. Students will be housed at College of the Rockies for classes, and they will be using St. Eugene Mission as the dorm accommodation. This is actually a really good thing because it's going to validate the business case that they have and make it a whole lot easier to get the megabucks construction financing that they're going to require to get the building built, which is probably not going to be breaking ground here until about 2024. In the meantime, they're going to be finishing the new holes at the golf course and prepping everything for that groundbreaking. And it's going to take at least another season to get that done in any event. I had a meeting with Tourism Kimberley, Chair of TK Todd Caton and John Hamilton with regard to the 3% MRDT submission, or us moving from 2% to 3%. As I think most of you may know, it's been problematic getting support from enough of the accommodators to move to the 3%. So we were talking about the submission that's going to be going in here shortly, and how we're going to make sure we get to that 3% this year. It means an extra 60 some odd $1,000 in marketing money to Tourism Kimberley to move from 2 to 3%. Most communities moved years ago, and we're not there yet. So hopefully sometime in the next 9 to 12 months, we'll be able to get that extra cash in. Last Friday was the kickoff of the Southeast Region office for CBC. We now have a full-time reporter from CBC for not only radio, but for TV. It's Corey Bullock, who cut her spurs at the Bulletin here. Had an opportunity to sit down and have a chat with Corey prior to the opening last Friday. Unfortunately, I was out of town. I wasn't able to attend, but it was a great event. And I think we are very fortunate to have Corey as a representative here doing coverage of all things Kimberley for the CBC. Jason's already mentioned the light up. It was a little chillier this year than in previous years. Just from an eyeball point of view, I think attendance was overall down a little bit, but that's the adults. The kids were there in full form. I also attended the Tanaha Enterprises Limited AGM. K&L have 3 businesses that they have and are marshaling throughout this region and actually out into the West Kootenays. They're reaching into the West Kootenays. They've had a pretty phenomenal year, and this organization is growing significantly. They've got well in excess of $1 million a year in revenues now, and have very strong investment sitting on the balance sheet. So they're very proud of the work that they've done, and rightly so. And finally, I just want to mention that I had a meeting and was providing a little bit of feedback to an individual who is looking to not so much resurrect L&K Taxi, but to start his own taxi company here in Kimberley. He's having some difficulty with all of the licensing forms and things and the hoops that you have to jump through. So we had a long conversation about navigating through the licensing requirements. Hopefully, we'll be able to see that sooner than later. I think he's being a little bit optimistic to be in business for the Christmas season, to be honest. The timelines for licensing, are not his friend at this point in time. But I think the good news is that we've got somebody who's committed to starting that business up again. And hopefully we'll see something, if not sooner, then certainly in the new year. Okay, that's it. Anything further? Anybody's forgotten? All right, we do have an in-camera tonight with several items, so we should move right to it. Councillor McBain moves that we move in camera, and Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? All right, that motion is carried. We'll take 2 minutes to clear the courtroom.